Hello, I'm Mystic Orange and this is video hashtag 655. In this video, I want to compare the 16 characters to the characters from Friends. Anyway, make sure to like, share and subscribe and make sure this channel reaches 600 milestones. If we reach 600 milestones, we get new things in this channel. Anyway, since we got that covered, let's get into this video. Honestly, there are fun ways to compare Friends and 16 together. But it's important to note that shows like 16, Total Drama and Stoked were created by the same company called Fresh TV. And it's interesting to compare especially 16 and Total Drama. While Total Drama takes inspiration from reality shows like The Survivor, I do think 16 takes inspiration from sitcoms like Friends. Well, between 16 and Friends, there are a lot of things in common. Both 16 and Friends have 6 main characters, 3 of them are boys and 3 of them are girls. And I do think in terms of structure, 16 does take inspiration from Friends, especially how they do the opening. Because in 16, the opening comes between the segments. They will have the episode playing before the opening starts. Bit like how Friends does it. And just like Friends, 16 also has the similar outro. So after the climax is ended and the show is trying to wrap up, at the end of the episodes, we get like a light-hearted moment from 16. I think it's a nice way to round off the episode, kind of like how Friends does it. But that's not all. Even with their theme songs, 16 and Friends are quite similar. I think I have seen YouTube videos where someone was trying to compare the songs between 16 and Friends. They tried to put the songs of the 16 music onto the Friends opening, and they did this for the Friends one with the 16 opening. And it's crazy to see how both music match with the opening. I will link both of these videos in the description. However, we can extend this by saying that both the Friends and the 16 characters have a lot of things in common. And I'm gonna go through them one by one, comparing each of the Friends character to the 16 characters. So I'm gonna start off this with Caitlin. I think out of the Friends cast, Caitlin has the most common with Rachel. I do think Caitlin and Rachel have a lot of things in common. I think both Caitlin and Rachel both start off their own shows. Caitlin starts off her story with Trisha entering the new friend group by having a new job with them. She didn't have a good welcoming, especially not from Nikki. She struggled with taking responsibility and felt like shopping all the time. I do think she took advantage of her dad's credit card. So her father, cut her off from this. So Kaylin kind of had to learn, work hard from scratch with a little help from Jen. In the similar vein, Rachel started her story by entering her friend group. Although, in comparison to Caitlin, Rachel already made friends with these characters. Like, she was already friends with Monica in her college years. And, Ross, was attracted to her when they were, younger. I remember Ross and this other guy, made this I Hate Rachel Green club. And like Caitlin, Rachel is also going in this path of trying to work hard with the help of Monica. Also, both Caitlin and Rachel are both into fashion. However, Rachel is more likely, getting her job into her fashion career and, learning to be more responsible that way. Kaylin doesn't even have a fashion job. She just has a job at the Lemon. And I don't think Kaylin goes through like a big hurdle or changes throughout the whole show. But whereas I think Rachel, has a significant like character development throughout the show. I think I would appreciate it if like we could see Caitlyn like becoming better and progressing her careers and learning to be stable with her money. Also, something I do notice about the later seasons in season 2 and onwards, I do think Kaylin does get regressed in those seasons because I think her character traits becomes worse. She tends to make selfish decisions. Both Caitlin and Rachel are known for making selfish decisions. But I think someone like Rachel does, learn and grow from it. Kaylin kind of makes a repetitive, mistakes. But I think it's just for like to fill in the status quo. Other than Rachel, I do think Kaylin has similarities to other characters like Phoebe. They're both blonde and ditzy. I wouldn't call Phoebe ditzy, but they're both like airheaded. So in summary, I think Kaylin has the most in common with Rachel from Friends. Also, if we have to analyze Friends, the real new person to the group would be Phoebe. We do have an episode where they present like Phoebe's like new to the friend group. I remember her discussing it with Ross in one episode. Like, that time when she revealed that she mugged people? The next two characters that I want to compare is both Jen and Monica. I already mentioned them in my comparison between Caitlin and Rachel. Like I said before, both Jen and Monica, help, assist their friends. Like Jen helps Caitlin out while Monica helps Rachel. They both help those characters to be more practical and responsible. Not only that, but Jen and Monica both give advice to these characters, not only to like Caitlin and Rachel, but also to their other friends. Not only that, but both Jen and Monica also have connection to their other friend members. For Jen, her stepbrother is Jonesy, another member of the friend group. And in Friends, Monica and Ross are both siblings. However, I do think both of these relationships of the siblings are quite different. For Jen, her relationship with Jonesy is kind of complicated. For the most part, Jonesy doesn't seem to respect Jen's boundaries and makes her living situation at home the worst, including with his, stepbrothers. Jen usually has bad moments with Jonesy. Not only that, but he makes her life living hell at work as well. I mean, I just did a video covering that one episode where Jonesy interfered Jen's job. At first, I can say that Jen and Jonesy's relationship is quite toxic, and I do think Jonesy is the big factor here. However, with Monica and Ross, their relationship is much more healthier. Yes, they can be competitive, but of course, that's to be expected by siblings. But at the end of the day, Ross and Monica have great, not only good relationship as siblings, but they also work together as friends as well. I can't say both Jonesy and Ross both do have their toxic traits, but I can say in terms of relationship between their siblings, Ross is much better at this. Other than Monica, Jen does have similarities to other characters. Well, for one thing, she does have similarities to Rachel. Well, the actress of Rachel is called Jennifer Aniston. I think that's like a coincidence, isn't it? And they both share the same, straight long brown hair. The next characters that I want to compare is Jude and Phoebe. I mean, it is surprising to compare these two because, like, they're both different genders. But I think, genders doesn't really factor in this comparison. I think out of the Friends characters, Jude would have the most comparison to Phoebe. They're both laid back and flaky. They tend to think freely and creatively outside the box. And both of these characters get into their silly giddy moods. Although out of the two, I would say Phoebe's more serious because she has like ideals and dogmas about being charitable to other people. She's like a good Samaritan in comparison to Jude, who seems more like a stoner kind of personality. I mean, I can't really compare Jude to any other characters from Friends, not even the guys. But I could say like both Jude and Joey are both like the nicest members of the group. But even that might be a stretch. I mean, who can you compare Jude to from Friends? If you can, let me know in the comments. The next characters we're comparing is Wyatt and Ross. In this channel, I've been comparing Wyatt and Ross recently in my 16 episode reviews. Initially, I didn't think I would have that much in common between these two characters. But like going through these episodes one by one, and looking at these characters in the fresh new eyes, I can see like there's so many things that's similar between these two. And there's positives and negatives. Well, I think the negatives outweigh the positives. But I will, point out the positives. I think both Ross and Wyatt, they are kind of characters who desire love. They are the hopeless, romantic, sensitive to other people. They present themselves as sensitive, nice guys. That is something that I want to establish first. And yes, I can say like at times Ross and Wyatt can be like that. And growing up, I didn't have any problems with Ross and Wyatt. Initially, I just thought they were just like cool guys, who seemed like less chaotic to their other male friends. But now I can see like both of these two characters have a lot of problems with them. I think I will talk about Ross first. I think, we all had that feeling where, like, okay, I think Ross initially, I didn't think have any problem with him. But, watching fans in, like, nowadays with fresh new eyes, looking really intently, analyzing everything in the show, and looking at everyone's videos about Ross, I can understand how like he is portrayed as like someone who isn't that nice. For one thing, his relationship with Rachel is just downright toxic. And I think it's both ways. I think both Ross and Rachel can be equally like at fault here. But Ross is constantly has problems with the girls he dates. So like he always has problems with other girlfriends. So it's not just with Rachel. He has problems with Mona. He has problems with Carol being a lesbian. He has problems with Emily because he said to his ex-girlfriend in the wedding. And looking at both Wyatt and Ross, they don't present themselves as nice as they seem. I think to them, they think like they're superior to, their friends' counterparts. like someone like Wyatt or Ross, they think they're like figuratively above their friends. Like they see their friends beneath them. You can see that happening with Ross constantly, like being like he's the oldest. He treats his friends like they're immature and everything. And for Wyatt, like he can do that sometimes with his friends too. And for Ross and Wyatt, they also share this trait where they're kind of like white knights. Like both Ross and Wyatt, they use cliches to win their dates. And they don't think deeply about, the relationship counterparts. I think in my last video I said this heavily about Wyatt. It's when I reviewed, where Jonesy had this new job at penalty box. And I just, with Wyatt, you just realize, like, with his relationship with, like, Serena, it's also kind of toxic. And you kind of see, like, he's part of the problem. Okay, at times you can say, like, Serena might be the problem. Like, his, wife's boss, she's, like, the older, mature member of, his relationships. However, like Ross, Wyatt, shows the signs of possessiveness, and he's so like Serena is like a prize to be won by him. Like Wyatt and Ross, do you have fantasies about their relationships? Like Ross did with Rachel, like as a teenager, he always fantasized, Rachel because of her beauty and her looks, and seeing her as like a Star Wars princess, like Princess Leia. And then like Wyatt, is like smitten over Serena's looks as well. And he kind of had to understand how like Serena and Wyatt, ended up together. Like at first, Serena, got bombarded by both Wyatt and Jonesy, to get to go out with them. Like, could you imagine Serena, being like it's like a pack of wolves, catching sheep. And then, like, Wyatt has an issue with Serena wearing, her ex's, like, bandana. Like, he's jealous of Serena wearing, like, her ex's bandana. And he made this whole issue about, like, wanting to be mature. But he isn't mature for Serena, not like this if he's bothered by someone wearing a bandana of the exes. Honestly, I really wanted to make this comparison video between Friends and 16, mainly because of Wyatt and Ross. I know I'm comparing the other two characters, but this was the reason why I wanted to make it. Also, I do want to add, there are, YouTubers who, analyze Ross and the other characters. First of all, there's a YouTube channel called The Take, who have analyzed each of the six main characters. They also made this one video explaining how toxic Ross is, and Judgmental Creator also made a video about Ross. So I will link both of the playlists and videos down in the description. I do recommend it. They both did a great job at explaining things. The next characters that I want to compare is Nikki and Chandler. Just like for Jude and Phoebe comparison, this also might be unexpected because Nikki and Chandler are both like different genders. But I do think like Nikki and Chandler have a little bit of similarities, but not a lot. There's not much comparison between the two. But he's the best character I can compare Nikki to. For one thing, both Nikki and Chandler use sarcasm, in their dialogue. Honestly, that's the best part of the comparison, really. There's not much else I can compare them to. I mean, who else can you compare Nikki to? But they do have a lot of things, difference between them two. Like Nikki is mean, and she uses sarcasm and toughness to push people away. Also, like Nikki isn't that much of a coward. She won't be afraid to tell you what's what. For Chandler, he uses his sarcasm to cover his insecurities. Like Chandler has a lot of insecurities inside him, so he kind of uses his sarcasm as a shield, for his insecurities. I recommend checking out the Taste video on Chandler. They did a good analysis on him. And finally, last but not least, I would have to compare Jonesy and Joey. And this should be an easy comparison. Like, first of all, both Jonesy and Joey have similar names. Because, Jonesy, Joey, they do sound similar. Additionally, both Jonesy and Joey are both ladies' men. They, prefer going out with lots of, girls. So I think, that's the best comparison between the two. However, Jonesy and Joey do have a lot of things, different between them. For one thing, Joey is a lot more nicer than Jonesy. I think, Joey, he respects women, and Jonesy doesn't do that. I think, I just covered an episode where, Jonesy definitely doesn't respect women. Like, Jonesy can be all the sexist or whatever, and Joey can never be that sort of person. So in conclusion, Jonesy and Joey are, similar. So far, I've compared Kaylin with Rachel, Jen with Monica, Jude with Phoebe, Wyatt with Ross, Nikki with Chandler, and Jonesy with Joey. So what do you guys think about these comparisons? Let me know in the comments down below who would you compare between the two characters from 16 and, Friends. It doesn't have to be the main characters. It can be, the side characters too. Honestly, there's a lot of other aspects where, like, there's similarities between 16 and Friends. It doesn't have to be just characters. Like I said, the theme song is also similar, and how they present the episodes. So if you can find any other similarities between those, you can share it in the comments. So anyway, I think that's it for this video. I really had fun making this. Anyway, thank you for listening. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and have a lovely day.